Hi, this is Bob with County Records Research, and we're getting ready to begin our Friday, December 16th, 2016 webinar. Welcome to our presentation. I've just activated the visual portion of our screen. If you joined us for our Wednesday presentation, then you know what I've already done is I've already logged into my account, and then I've selected the property search option. Here on the left-hand side is your control panel for the site. So I logged in after clicking on the login option with my username and password, and then I've selected property search, and now I'm at my property search screen. And on Wednesday, we looked at how the website functions, some of the basic steps that we use in terms of setting up searches and saving properties. Today we want to be a little bit more focused on doing our research and examining properties and analyzing them based on our interests. So first of all, I want to show you that I can go ahead and select, for instance, LA County South. Obviously, we've got quite a few people who are interested in that target area, the South Bay. If I put my cursor over it, then you see a list of all the different incorporated cities to let me know that I am in the right spot and looking in the right area for my target properties. Okay, now if I scroll down a little bit, there's my single property search section. I was just looking at a property, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so this is my single property search section. Again, I want to emphasize very strongly, this becomes your favorite part of the site because it allows you to do deep research on a property, see if they've got historical records in our system based on a history of foreclosure, and to see if there are additional foreclosures pending on the same house. You can have multiple loans on a property, just like you can have multiple credit cards in your wallet. Just as any one of my credit cards can send me to collection to demand payment, any loan on my house can demand payment in the form of a foreclosure action. Consider a foreclosure action to be very much like collection on my credit card. Okay, because the whole point of the foreclosure is the lender is encouraging the homeowner, using the stick rather than the carrot, to get the homeowner to take action and bring their loan current. So the foreclosure process notifies us as a subscriber to the data that the parties that we're going to be approaching have themselves fallen behind in their payments. Now, that being said, let's just do a little basic research. I've picked my LA County South Zone, and I'm going to go down to the general property search screen. Okay, now notice whenever I come to this screen, notice as a default is selected for me. And I've got a date range that goes back 2 weeks and to today. And again, to emphasize, from what we said Wednesday, the notice of default record is the first shoe to drop in a foreclosure. So the action by the lender to compel the homeowner to pay their bill is notified in terms of a notice of default to the homeowner. Now, one of the things I want to also point out to you is these dates down below. These are not set in stone. In fact, as a researcher, I like the flexibility built into the site, because what I can do is I can say, I don't want to see everything from the last 2 weeks. What if I've been researching for the last week and I only want to see what's fresh for today? Let's take that approach, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the first date here in the box to today's date. So now I've got December 16th to December 16th. I just tightened my date range. Now, I want to emphasize, I can also expand it to 32 days, and I can alter the date range. If I wanted to go in the system and look for only properties in Bellflower or only properties in Lakewood, then I could specify a date range in November, October. I could go back to November of last year if I wanted to by simply changing the dates in the boxes. Okay, using the little calendars, you can be very diligent in your research techniques, especially if you're someone who's fond of a very specific target area. Okay, because the more specific my target area, the more creative I want to be in my date range research to make sure I'm not missing any opportunities in that area. Now, also I want to point out, I can specify property use. I can go down here and I can say I only want to see single-family residential, or I only want to see condos, or I only want to see apartment buildings like fourplexes. Okay, now this use code for apartments includes anything from a duplex to a 100-story building. Okay, if it's an apartment building, it's an apartment building. Okay, now if it's 5 units and above, it's commercial. If it's 4 units and below, it's residential. Most of your foreclosures happen to be residential because residential owners are the ones that got in the most trouble because they were taking out these easy to get, fog and mirror loans or stated income loans or option arms. A lot of really unusual loan products were introduced. And for that reason, you got a lot of residential borrowers who got in trouble. Most commercial borrowers understand the nature of a commercial loan. They're usually shorter term. And most commercial borrowers have a tendency to be a little bit more careful, whereas residential borrowers can make more mistakes because they're not professional investors and they're not professionals at getting loans. So obviously the professional or the experienced person who's a business owner is going to have a lot more knowledge in terms of how to manipulate their money, whereas a young couple that first buys a house that jumps up in value and then refinances, they're going to get in trouble. Okay, so now I could specify apartment, I could specify commercial, I could specify mobile homes. Now, in our system, a mobile home will have to own the land as well. They have to be one, okay? A mobile home without land is a trailer. Okay, just so you know, it's important to know, if you have a mobile home in our system, that means they own the land it sits on. Okay, otherwise it's a trailer and that would not be covered under foreclosure. Okay. All right, so let's just say that we want to look at everything that got a notice of default in our South Bay area today. Okay, it's probably going to be a short list, but let's just take a quick look. Now I'm going to leave it in standard because that's my preferred format, and I'm going to hit my search without polygon button, and we're going to get started. Now, so as I expected, this is just 1 day's worth of notice as a default, so it's a short report, okay? Now, I prefer to look at notices of sale as a general rule because there's more pressure on the borrower because they have a scheduled auction date, but this is fine. This is a good way to start. Now, here we have our notices of default. Notice the orange icons on the map. Some people refer to these, they look like marbles or Skittles, okay? But obviously each of these icons represents a property. If I put my cursor over the property icon, then I get a little window that opens up that gives me an address. So here's a property on Rosecrans Avenue in Gardena. Now this is kind of odd. It gives me a lot size but no square footage, so this might be vacant land. Okay, obviously if it has a square footage, that's for the actual developed building on the property, whereas lot size is just simply the land. So if I click on the address, I'll open the profile. And what do we have here? We have a property near the intersection of Rosecrans and Crenshaw. If I scroll down a little bit, my property type looks like VCOM or vacant commercial. So this looks like this is a vacant lot. Let's zoom in a little bit using the little wheel on my mouse and then hit bird's eye. Okay. Not sure what we've got here. Maybe this icon or maybe this geocode is in the wrong spot. I'm going to go ahead and hit aerial. Okay. So now in this view, I have sort of an area here that seems to be a vacant strip right next to Rosecrans. So let me go back to my bird's eye. Okay, so we might have this area here as a vacant strip of land, which is kind of odd, but that's okay. It is what it is. Notice the lot size is 37,178. Not a lot of land. Okay, so city zoning code says gap, so it kind of looks like a gap to me. All right, this is an oddball. Okay, the first thing I got to tell you is if I'm not sure of something, if it doesn't match a criteria that I've already set for myself, what's the first thing you do is, like any fish that you pull up out of the ocean and you don't know what it is, you throw it back. So I'm going to throw this one back. And now notice with this property profile, I've got a red box with the white X. I can also go up here on top and click on the little X with the red circle around it. I'm going to click on that one. Now, all that does is it gets rid of that property. And again, I just threw that one back because I can't think of anything creative to do with it, because it looks like a strip of land in between the residential homes and the boulevard, and I just couldn't picture myself buying that property and doing a flip. Now, for you, if you're a commercial broker, you might say, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what Joe wants. But that's not my perspective, so I'm going to move on. Now, this group of properties above the map, notice the map reflects 0 to 20 of 13 total records. Now, because the number of records, because remember, I picked a very short date range just today, so this number of records only reflects the brand new notices of default we got in the South Bay today. So now, because it's a short list, I can scroll down and all 13 records are visible because the map reflects 0 to 20. Now, if it was more than 20, that's why we have these numbers here, 20, 40, and 60. So it says show 20, 40, 60. So if it was 50, up here up top, 50 total records, I would click the 60, and then it would say 0 to 60, and I would have every property visible. Now, these are notice of default records. So because these are notice of default records, you'll notice that they don't have an opening bid for the auction. They don't have the specific amount owed on the loan. They do have other criteria also that is helpful to me. So first of all, they show me that their loan position, notice these are mostly going to be ones, and this is common. Whenever you see a notice of default or a notice of sale in our system, the majority will always be ones, okay? This is kind of like a picket fence, all right? Look at all 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, you will see twos, and occasionally you'll see threes. Normally when I see a 3, I generally tend to believe that that is either a very small refinance loan, like a property upgrade, like someone's adding a room or an upgrade of the property or a bathroom, or it's going to be an HOA lien. Okay, so now HOAs are a category that's by themselves, because whenever you have an HOA foreclosing, what they're doing is they're demanding payment on their monthly dues that has accrued over a period of time of at least 1 year or a minimum of $1,800. That's $1,800 in missed payments on the HOA dues. Okay, so you will see HOA liens pop up in the system. They follow a little bit different rule because the HOA has to get an assessment lien recorded, and then what they need to do is file the notice of default, and then they have to take it to auction like a loan does. But in that situation, if they do so, then the person who bids at auction becomes the owner after 90 days from the date of the auction. Okay, I got a little bit of background noise there, so I am going to have to go ahead and hit the mute option. Okay, but don't hesitate to ask me questions by using the chat window there on your screen if you want to ask me any questions related to what I'm going to be going over, because there's more information here to show you, and I want you to see what I want to show you. Now, first of all, on this list of properties, most of these are firsts. 1, 2, 3 of these are seconds. Okay, so when you have a second foreclosing, as a general rule, you're going to have a loan ahead of it, which is the first loan. So this property on Carfax in Bellflower has a foreclosing second, and so we have our senior junior loan column shows me a first of $431,200, and then there's a slash and then zeros. Okay, now the senior junior loan column, it's important to know, is showing us what's senior to or older than the foreclosing loan. If it's a first foreclosing, as most of these are, then there's nothing senior than a first. The first is the most senior loan in the chain. Therefore, always ahead of the slash here, you're going to see a 0. So whenever a first forecloses, there's a 0 ahead of the slash. For purposes of, perceiving what this is telling you, consider the slash to represent the loan that's in question, the loan that's foreclosing. Okay, so if a first is foreclosing and the slash represents that loan, then anything ahead of it is a 0. There's nothing. Okay, it's an empty set. There's nothing there. So that's why ahead of the slash are zeros whenever you have a foreclosing first. Now, whenever you have a foreclosing first, there's also the possibility that there could be a second, perhaps a third, even a fourth in some cases, okay? Most of the time, you're going to see one or two loans. Okay, you will see exceptions. You will see properties that have larger amounts of loans because perhaps the loans are smaller, or perhaps because you have someone that's taken out loans for specific reasons over time, and so they kind of collect a group of loans. Okay, now in these cases you've got these foreclosing firsts, and the second one on Fry's Avenue in Wilmington, there's a second of 38,000. Okay, so that means the first is foreclosing and there's a second behind it of 38,000. Now, whenever we see the senior junior loans and the loan position, we also have an auction equity column here to the right. Now, all this tells me with the auction equity figure is it's doing a rough comparison between the market value of the property based on our estimated value. So let me emphasize the importance. Hi, Rich, good to see you. Let me emphasize the importance of the estimated value on these properties. These are comps. Whenever you think about a comparable value on a property, what you're doing is you're asking yourself, what is that property sellable for in good shape or in optimal condition? Because most of your flips in the marketplace will not be as-is sales. They'll be properties that have been fixed up a bit. Okay, what is the advantage we have in buying foreclosures is that we're picking up properties that have a deferred maintenance condition most of the time. We're getting a deal because the property needs work. And what we become masters of is how to do that work for the lowest cost possible and at the fastest pace possible so that we can turn that property over and make a healthy profit in a short amount of time. So the estimated value is what I perceive to be the amount of money I could potentially sell this property for in a perfect situation. Okay, so this one on Oakwood Avenue in Linwood, we have an estimated value of $407,000. We have a foreclosing first, and we have an auction equity figure that our system has calculated, again, a rough calculation based on this estimated value of $407,000 and based on what's owed on the loan that's in question. By comparing those numbers, the website has given us a figure of $170,000 positive. There's no negative sign here. Notice there's negative signs on some of these. Okay, now if it's a positive number of 170,000, that tells me the system is telling me that it looks like on the face of it there's about 170,000 in equity if this place is in prime condition. Okay, so again, take it with a grain of salt because we have to make sure that this estimated value is right. And we have to make sure that we're able to do the fixing that we need to do and decide how much we want to get for the property. Now, bottom line is this, all these figures are there for is so that you can look at this and make a judgment call and ask yourself, if I bought this house on Oakwood Avenue in Linwood, what am I willing to pay for it in a direct transaction, whether it's at the auction with cash or whether I'm going to the property owner and offering to buy the property outright. Now, if I think that's enough room, 170,000, for me to go and negotiate a deal with the homeowner, then I'm going to pursue going to the property directly. So let's assume that that's my mindset, okay? Because again, the first thing that we always want to consider is this. If I can make an offer to the homeowner and buy their property before it goes to auction, then I've got a chance to buy it without being out of pocket for the whole purchase price. Okay, so if I think this place could sell for 400,000 conservatively, and I know that there's equity of about 170, then that tells me that I think that they have about $230,000 in existing debt, and I might be able to go make them an offer subject to their existing loans. This is what Kurt points out in his 5 ways to buy, is that I can take over this person's payments if they have the type of loan that I can do that with. Let's take a quick look and see what we've got here. So I'm going to click on the Oakwood Avenue address and open the profile. So this is a notice of default record. Now, notice of default records in our system are very similar to notice of sale records. The profiles are lined up the same way so you can get it really quickly adjusted to looking at the numbers and making sense of the deal. Okay, so this particular property on Oakwood, let's look at a couple facts. The property's address is 2981 Oakwood. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. 1,500 square feet on a 6,446 square foot lot, built in 1952. Basic stuff, okay? Now, on the right-hand side, we see their purchase price when they bought it was $238,000 in 2010. Okay, the purchase date is February 1st of 2010. So now, looking over here at the upper left-hand side, recognize that these profiles, again, they're laid out this way for a reason. I have a map on the right and I've got the loans on the left. Okay, map on the right, loans on the left. Notice the loan for $228 and $361. This has got a date of January of 2012. Okay, so this loan is not a purchase first. This is a refinance first, because notice the dates don't match. Okay, now above the loan information we have the delinquency figure, because the lender just posted this. Again, we just got this today. So as of 12/12, now notice that that date is about 4 days ago. Okay, so 4 days ago the lender recorded this notice of default and sent it to the homeowner. This is a very fresh lead. Okay, so first of all, these folks have equity. Secondly, this is a very fresh lead and an opportunity, I think, to go to a family that's tried to take care of business but has difficulties because they can't make their payments. They're only about $8,700 behind. So that's not a lot of money in real terms for me to be able to bring that loan current and take it over. And that's that amount. Remember what I said, it was about 230 grand. Okay, so we're looking at about 228 plus, let's say 8,000. So let's call that about 240 roughly. So that's right in the same ballpark as what I mentioned before I even looked at the profile. Okay, so they owe about 240 on a house that's worth about 400,000. So I could go to the owners. Now notice this, we have Jose and Rosie Lee Guzman. So Jose and Rosie Lee are the owners. They're the people that own the property. Also notice their mailing address is the same address that's on the property detail section below. So what we have is a homeowner, a couple that both own the property and live at the same location. So this is their primary residence. This is their home. Okay, so obviously when we go to make an offer, we need to be very nice. We need to understand that they themselves are in an uncomfortable position, but they also have a good deal of equity. And if they're open to the idea, then maybe I can buy this house for about $300,000 and they win and I win, because then I'm in a position to fix it up and put it on the market and maybe sell it for around $4. Now notice I could say, oh, I'm just going to offer them what they owe. I'm just going to offer them 228 plus the 8 or about 240. Okay, but remember also, you know, the bank's the one using the stick, right? The bank's the one that's demanding that they pay. I've got to show up with the carrot. I've got to give them an opportunity to get out of trouble, but to get out of trouble with some money in their pocket. And there's no reason not to make a fair offer and allow them to walk away with some cash. Because again, if someone else comes in and makes them an offer above mine, then I lost an opportunity. So there's one, you know, there's one course of action, and that's to determine what am I willing to pay for the property based on the numbers, and to approach the opportunity with a reasonable expectation. Okay, because if I came to them and I said I'll offer you 240,000, they might say I'm not interested, that's not enough, or yeah, they might say I'm not interested, that's not enough. Whereas if I came in and I offered them 3, then they're actually getting some cash to walk away with from a house that they've owned for 6 years. And because remember, they know that they're in trouble. I mean, they understand what's going on. They need a way out that makes sense for them. Okay, so now if nobody offers them a way out that makes sense, the foreclosure timeline is dictated by civil code. So this as of date, as of 12/12, just 4 days ago, like I said, the very fresh lead, okay? The lender has 90 days or 3 months to issue the sale notice with an auction date about 21 days after that. So we're looking at January, February, March, mid-March for a notice of sale to be issued, which means early April for an auction date. Okay, so these folks, if nothing else happens, can be in the property until April. Okay, now what we're trying to do, of course, is offer them an opportunity to resolve the matter without going to auction. That's better for their credit. Put some cash in their pocket, which is better for them moving forward, so that, and then at the same token, giving myself an opportunity to take possession of the property well before April, because if I could buy this property and have it ready to flip in January, then I might have my money in my pocket before Valentine's Day, as opposed to waiting to April to try and bid at the auction and maybe get into a bidding scenario with somebody else that drives my cost up. Okay, remember, if we can do this quickly and do it at a price that makes sense, then we can actually be in and out and everybody's happy. Okay, so now using the mapping function and the wheel on my mouse, I'm zooming in and I'm hitting my bird's eye option, and now we've got to look at the house. So now it looks like they got a swimming pool in the backyard. Obviously they concreted the backyard in, they got a pool. It's not the prettiest yard, so that's going to take some cosmetic work, because obviously that looks like that's not, that's got some aesthetic questions as far as the pool goes. Now, but notice the pool's already been drained in this photograph at least, so that tells me they might have already been dealing with circumstances with a budget that's blown up on them. So they might have a very good idea of what they need to do. Now, another thing that I can do is I can scroll down to below my estimate of value, which is again my comparable value, and hit my Zillow Zestimate button, Zestimate at Zillow, just to see, and this is why I do this. This is why we have this link. It's not because we rely on Zillow for pricing. It's because I want to know that this property is in escrow at $395,000, so I don't go waste my time on a property where somebody else is already in on it. Now, what is the other thing I can do? Let's assume I'm not wasting my time. Let's assume that they're pending in escrow at $395,000, but it has the potential to fall out, because not everybody closes their deals. So maybe I can do a backup offer on this one. Okay, now they've got an offer pending at $395,000. Now, if it was me that had made the offer, I don't think I would have been that high. I'm going to just go ahead and close this one out. I wouldn't have been that high based on that estimate of value. Now let me open it up again. What did Zillow give us as a market value? Zillow says it's worth about $416,000. So now that tells me that whoever made this offer, they're not giving themselves room to do a flip. This must be an offer from one end user to another, or perhaps an agent just came in and made an offer for someone that is going to move into the property, because obviously that doesn't leave a lot of room for me as a flipper. Okay, so this is one of those situations where it looks like somebody has made an offer as a potential buyer, but that also opens the possibility, as I said, this could fall out of escrow. Okay, so if you wanted to approach it, do a backup offer and see what you can do. All right, there is information here on Zillow. Now if I scroll a little further down, I can hit the price tax history just to see what happened here. And this is another source of information just to see that they actually started listing the property back in June of this year. They listed it with Realty World at $375,000. And then it looks like in August they raised the price from $375,000 to $400,000, kind of an unusual move, but okay. And then in December here they dropped it back down to $395,000. Okay, that's kind of an unusual pattern. Usually what you'll see happen is they'll have listed it for a price like 4, dropped it to 395, and then finally dropped it to 375 before they got an offer that got accepted and go into escrow. So right now, here's what we know. We know that they're working with Realty World, that they got their offer into escrow at 395. What we don't know is how is that purchase going to be funded? And is the person that offered them 395, since they're probably an end user buyer, the end buyer, the person that's going to live on the property, they're probably getting a brand new loan to do it. And they're probably going in with the idea that they're going to pay off this first, because most people that are just getting started into buying real estate don't think as creatively as Kurt does. Okay, so it's very likely that they're coming in with a brand new loan for 300 and something thousand, almost $400,000. And if they fall out, then you're going to have a desperate seller, and we go make our offer. And stick to your guns. Set a price that makes sense for yourself. You know, you don't have to offer them the moon, but be realistic. I'd be around 3 if it were me. Okay, that would give me enough room to do some fix up on the house, remarket it, and sell it for just under 4, which is the price point that that couple that's in escrow right now is willing to pay. Okay, now if that falls out, and if I can't get my offer accepted at $300,000, then come April, we'll have a lender that's owed about 200 and, well, they're owed about 240 now. I think the payments are about $2,000 a month. So I'm going to say about 250 would be the opening bid at auction in April. So notice there's always more than one way to get in the door and get the property. So don't underestimate your ability, and don't underestimate how many of these properties turn out to be good deals. Okay, that's this one. Now I'm going to close this one out. I'm right back at my list. Now notice I can just work my way right down. So now here's that one on Fry's in Wilmington. Now this is a first that's foreclosing with a second of 38. Auction equity is about $7,000, so that tells me that the two loans together are about $411,000 without even opening it, because I noticed that the property has an estimated value of about $418. Okay, so what I would do on that property is I would be prepared to go make an offer. Again, set a market value for yourself that makes sense. Is it 3? Okay, if it's 300,000, it's 300,000. You should have a plan when you go to make your offer, and have that offer in hand and ready to hand it to the folks if they're willing to take it. Because if I'm going to buy this house and flip it and fix it up, I need to get my money out of it. And if I'm going to hire a realtor to represent me and do open houses and help me sell the property, then he or she needs to get paid too. Okay, so on this particular property on Fry's, okay, now this is Tony and Mara are the trustors. Now notice we have a trustor and we have an owner. The owner's on title, the trustor borrowed the money. So whenever, these are usually going to be the same folks, and they're usually going to have the same mailing address as the house, because most of the time it's going to be 1 or 2 people that own a property that borrowed the money. Okay, now these are either going to be refinance loans, which these are again, or they're going to be a purchase first and then a second. Okay, so pardon me. Now both of these loans were written in 07. You're going to see this a lot in the system, is loans from 07 when someone refied because their house shot up in value. We all know that, right? And then as their house shot up in value, they got that call, hey, you got equity, use it or lose it, and they refied. So they took out these loans. Look at what they did initially. They bought it in 02 for $239, and they were able to borrow $438,000 just 5 years later. That was their error, because then they thought, wow, I got all this money I can take out and play with. Now, they might have really fixed this house up nice, or they might have not done anything at all. Let's take a quick look, zooming in using the wheel on my mouse, and hit my bird's eye. Now remember, this is why we drive by every property. We have a price in mind before we go based on the basic numbers, okay? I should have the basic price in my head before I come to the house. Whether I'm going to bid at the auction or whether I'm going to go make an offer to the homeowner, I should have a number in mind. And just simple process. If I don't have a number, how do I get there, okay? So I got to set a number and then figure out how do I get there. So again, let's say that this place is worth about 4, and I'm just going to ballpark it. That's all we can do is I'm going to ballpark it around 4, and I'm going to say then I want to pay around 3. Now, if I know that we've got these loans that are only 9 years old, they owed $438 before. Now, the $400,000 loan from 07 is delinquent by $11,000. Since it's about a 9-year-old note, I'm going to guess that they've only paid it down about 10 to 20 grand by now. So I'm going to say I think they owe right around the 438. Okay, now I'm making a guess, but that's all right. That's close enough for government work, and it's close enough for foreclosures. I'm just making a guess. So I think they owe 438. I think I'm willing to pay about 3. So this is a short sale offer to Tony and Mara. Okay, now either they'll take it or they won't. Now, if Tony and Mara accept my short sale offer, then the lender has a say in the matter too. In fact, there are 2 lenders here, maybe just one because both loans were written on the same date. So this could be the same lender on both loans. Okay, so now if Tony and Mara accept my offer, then we go into escrow. Then the lenders have their say. Okay, if the lenders disagree, it continues on into foreclosure because this is a property I consider to be, from my perspective, upside down when compared to my required purchase price. Because if I pay $400 for this place, how am I going to make any money? Okay, so I've got to set a target price that makes sense. So knowing everything I know, I might not buy this because I might make my short sale offer and Tony could say no, or Mara could say no, or the lender could say no. There's at least 3 players here, if not 4, that have to accept my short sale offer. If it doesn't go through, then this could go to auction again in April, and it's very likely that in April they're going to discount it anyway because they can lower it at auction because the auction doesn't create a comparable. The auction is a wholesale disbursement of a property that's in arrears. So at auction, they could open this up for $300,000 and I can get my deal then. If I've got the cashier's checks, I'm willing to buy it all one lump sum all at once. Okay, so either I can land it now or I wait. Okay, I'm going to scroll down a little bit just to see the lender. Now, this is Nationstar Mortgage. They're a servicer. So that also tells me that this has probably been behind before. Okay, so bottom line is this: Nationstar doesn't take over just any old account. They're a loan servicer. That means this loan has passed on, probably because they were delinquent in the past. Nationstar has taken over a lot of the older foreclosures on loans from 2007. So I have a kind of a picture here of what I would do here. And obviously, again, short sale or try and bid at the auction. You're not going to buy this first from Nationstar. Don't even bother. You waste of time. Okay, now I'm going to click on my little X here, and I'm right down the next page. Now, notice this one on Nashville Avenue in La Mirada. This property, similar to the one on Oakwood and Linwood, this has an equity position of $180,000. But don't think too fast, because look, this is a foreclosing first with a second. Now, the auction equity does not consider the second because the first is foreclosing and it wipes the second out. So Nashville is upside down. Okay. No. Oh, okay. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Now, this is something that you need to be aware of. This might have a modification because notice what we have is we have a first of 255 from 2002. We have what looks like a second, and I'm going to emphasize what looks like a second, of 208,000 from 2015, or barely a year and a half ago. Okay, now what this tells me is either Sergio, who's our owner and borrower, either Sergio took out a second in June of last year for 208,000, or he fell behind on his first and he got a modification of his first, and so what looks like a second might be the very same loan. If that's true, then that tells me not only is this property not upside down, it's got a substantial amount of equity because that means his $255,000 first got knocked down to $208,000, and then he's $16,000 in arrears on that. Okay, so let's say he got a modification in June of 2015, and then after he got his modification, whatever crisis that he's in didn't get resolved, and he's missed payments for approximately 18 months. So now that makes sense to me, because if he's missed payments, let's say he got a modification where his payments are around $1,000 a month, and he fell behind a month or two later, then that would explain the delinquent amount almost to the dollar. Okay, and that would mean that we've got a guy that owes about $225,000 on a $400,000 house. Okay, now I'm saying that because our system says $450,000, but we got to assume if he's been in jeopardy for this much of a time, the house is probably not really fixed up all that well. Now I'm going to use my map and zoom in again and hit my bird's eye option. Well, it looks like we've got a house on a nice quiet street, a lot of trees, swimming pool in the backyard. This might be an all right deal here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my single property search option, because notice how I have a question now here, because if I decide that he really owes only about 230 grand, I'm excited, because this means I've got an opportunity here to go approach this guy, put some cash in his pocket, and buy his property under market value. If it's worth $450,000 and he's got this nice house with a pool, I might be able to buy it for $350,000, put cash in his pocket, and put myself on the road to getting a nice profitable flip. Okay, so first of all, before I waste any more time, I'm going to click the Zestimate button just to see if he's got it listed or pending. Nope, no information here. Does have some pictures, but this is not much. That might be related to the fact that he's in foreclosure. Okay, now I'm just going to go to see here if he had any listing history. Now, the only history is auction.com. As I said, auction.com's got information posted because he's in foreclosure. Okay, so he hasn't listed this, he hasn't tried to sell it. Okay, I might have an opportunity to approach this guy and work a deal out. Okay, now what I want to do though is I want to see if my hunch is right, so I'm going to do a quick single property search. Remember I said you're going to love that section of the site. It's my favorite section of the site. It's so helpful. I'm going to draw, left click and draw, right click and copy. Now for the purposes of the demonstration, we're using Google Chrome as our browser. So I'm going up top to my tab, my open window tab on the far left, and that opens my main page, and I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to select the parcel number box, the third box down in my single property search. Now, whenever you drop a parcel number in this box, make sure you've got it flushed to the left-hand margin in the box, and then hit search. Now, what I wanted to just do is see if there was any other records in the system that indicated a longer term history on foreclosure on this particular property, and I don't see that. What I do see is I see that he had a default notice from October of 2015 that looks like that was on a third on the property, and then that was set to go to auction in May of this year. So I'm going to go ahead and open that record. Now, this is different information here. Now, notice what I see here is I see that original first that we saw from 02 of 255, but notice that I see a couple of loans here that are evidently from 2008, one for $52,000 and one for $74,000. So maybe this fella did take out that loan in 2015. Maybe he does have the two loans against the property. Okay, because he had these two loans here, and he had a notice of default that looks like issued in 2015 on those loans. This is a little peculiar now, because let me go back to his original property profile. So in June, he took out this loan for $208. So he might have taken out this loan for the $208 and then not had paid those other loans off because maybe they were in arrears, and he was in the process of getting this loan approved and just didn't do it right, just didn't handle it right. So it's very likely, since our researcher is showing us on this most recent record that we only have the 2 loans, that other matter was resolved after he took out this 208, and then he used the proceeds from this loan for 208 to pay off those other 2. So I'm going to go back to my original thought process, which is that I believe the 255 and the 208 are actually both on the property, and that he owes right around market value on this place, okay, and that he has both loans, okay. So bottom line is this, is because he just took out this second, he might pull this one out, maybe, I don't know, whatever crisis he hit, it's still going on because he hasn't made payments on this first loan. Okay, now maybe he's got some cash left over from this loan that he just took out a year ago that he's going to use to resolve that, but I don't know. It seems like he's might be robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I would consider making an offer. I would look at my numbers, and I would be probably considering it to be a short sale, just because if he does have equity, I don't think he has enough to satisfy my needs if I'm going to buy it to flip it. Okay, if nothing gets resolved, then again, we're looking at another property going to April, going to auction. I had a question here from AJ. What is the difference between the information you get from your service to auction.com? Valid question, AJ. We cover every single foreclosure. Auction.com gets about 5 to 10%. Okay, now we cover all of auction.com's information because we cover all foreclosures. Auction.com provides their information on their foreclosures. Now, we also research all the loan information. Auction.com is a selling company. They're selling properties at the auction, okay? Since they're providing the data, or they're providing the information for people who are bidding at the auction at the behest of the lender and the lender's trustee, Auction.com is not obligated to tell you whether you're bidding on a first or a second, okay? We are, because that's our job. We're telling you whether it's a first or a second foreclosing, and we're teaching you how to do your further research to make sure what we're telling you is correct, okay? Because we're not selling you title insurance. That wouldn't be cost effective for you, okay? What we're doing is we're teaching you how to fish so you can get out there and get the good fish, okay? Auction.com is simply one place to put your line in the water or put your net in the river to catch that fish, but you got to be careful with Auction.com. Like with anybody that's selling foreclosure properties at the auction, you need to do your homework. You need to make sure you know whether you're bidding on a first or a second or a third. Okay, and if you're not sure what you're doing, ask someone who knows and who doesn't have a vested interest in pushing you to buy that property, and that's us, because our vested interest is teaching you how to do it the right way and walking away with profit in your pocket. Okay, and you can always ask questions. If you ask us questions about a property and we coach you, we are not going to go after that property ourselves. The deal is yours to win or lose, but we're going to give you everything you need to know. Okay, so now this one, I'm pretty satisfied. I got what I needed off of this one. What we're now going to do is go down the line, because there's properties I want to show you guys, and we're burning daylight here, so we're going to keep moving. Now, this next one on Gonzalez in Cerritos is a second foreclosing. Now, notice in our senior junior loan column section, we have a first, a slash for the foreclosing second, and a third of $50,000. So we have 3 loans in play. Now our system is comparing the numbers and saying that it's worth $625, and then if we add the first and the second together, because the second's foreclosing, your auction equity is about $74,000. Okay, so it's not a lot of room, but more importantly, there's a third of $50,000, so we're down to about $24,000 in potential equity if we were to go and try and buy the property outright. So we're already at a point where if I was going to go make an offer on this particular property, I'm already pretty much under the impression that I would be making a short sale offer, because it appears to me that there's very little equity, if any, that leaves me any room to do any fix-up on the property and or pay an agent to represent the property to market for me. So in this situation, I would think this property is most likely going to be a short sale offer. And again, see how I said I was able to break out the loan information without opening the profile? Now that I have the profile open, it's a fairly clear picture, isn't it? So we see the 3 loans. We see the delinquency figure. We see that it is the mailing address and the property address are the same, so this is owner occupied. And now one thing I am missing is their purchase date here. It doesn't show me what it is. Now whenever that's missing, that's okay. Sometimes you'll be able to pull it out by going over to the Zillow page and seeing what the information tells us there. What I do know is the place is worth right about what they owe. Okay, and if I'm going to flip this and make any money, I got to pay less for it. Now, if I can't cut a deal with them, that's okay, because we've got another property that would end up going to auction in the April timeframe with a foreclosing second that wipes out itself and the third. The first of 218.5 from 1999 would still be on the property. Now, in this situation, you can look at the 321 from 03 that's $12,000 behind and just make a good solid guess, educated guess, that the number of months they're behind on that second is equivalent to the number of months they'll be behind on the first. So now if you had an actuarial or an amortization schedule, you can kind of crunch the numbers and see what you think they're on, where they sit on this first loan, because I'm guessing that they're about 4 to 5 months behind on the second. They're probably about the same amount behind on the first, and that first was probably paid down to a little under 200,000 before they ran into their crisis. And again, that's why we deal with these folks. They're in a crisis, they're desperate, and the opportunity is for us to get the best deal we can. Now, if we can do an offer to the family and they take it, then we go into escrow as a short sale, because again, they owe more than I'm willing to spend. If that's not the case, if we want to wait it out, this property will go to auction in April, and the lender will wipe out his loan and the third, and it's very likely that the price point on this second will be appetizing enough to make it worth my while. Now, for those of you that have cash but not a lot, the advantage in bidding on a second is if I can make a good solid guess or find out even more specifically what's owed on the first, then I can be prepared to bid on the second with some of my cash, and then be prepared to bring the first current with the balance of it, and then do my rehab and my flip, and then whoever buys the property from me ends up paying off the first loan. Okay, so that way I've done a little bit of creative financing by actually allowing the senior first to actually wind up being my borrowed money for a temporary time frame while I'm doing my rehab and my flip, without having to put my credit out or to actually put my social out and borrow a new first. I can just simply let that one ride during the process of my my rehab and my flip. Okay, so that's pretty much how I would see that one. And I want to keep moving because I'm running out of time, and I wanted to get down to one of these and show you what I see right here. Now, notice that there's a couple properties on this report with a foreclosing first and a second of $1. And we'd like to point these out because, as Kurt was pointing out to you, in the trends that we're seeing in the market today, we're seeing more and more of these reverse mortgage foreclosures. That's what this one on Olympic Boulevard in Pico Rivera. This is a foreclosing first with a second of $1. Now, whenever you see something like this, it's also going to confuse you, because you're going to see a negative auction equity figure that seems outrageous. You're going to see negative, in this case, $490,997, or negative $491,000 on a property that's worth about $322. So again, that seems outrageous. So let's see what we're really dealing with, okay? Because this number is false. It doesn't make sense. And you're going to see why it's there in just a moment. So I'm going to click on this Olympic Boulevard property and open the profile. Now, what this one is, this is a reverse mortgage. The property is belonging to Martha Huerta. Martha's the trustor. She's the person that took out this loan. Okay. Now, Martha is also on title as the owner. Now, here's the challenge. Martha is either not well or she's passed on. This is a reverse mortgage. Now, it's possible that the reason that the property's mortgage has been called is not that Martha has left us. It could be that she allowed something to fall behind, like taxes or insurance. It could be something else. Also, it could be that Martha got sick and had to be moved into assisted living and moved out of the property proper. Okay, there are different reasons why a reverse mortgage can be called. The important fact here is this. Either Martha's there or she should have family members that are there. There should be someone with the power to sell the property. And if there is, that's our opportunity to buy it before the auction. And let me explain. Notice that we have a delinquent amount that's, again, outrageous, $269,476. Now on the surface, this seems awful because we have a loan from 2007 that was originally for $544,000. Now what our system is doing, it's taking a standard loan and taking those rules and applying it to this reverse mortgage. Let me tell you, that's not what we do with this type of a property. What we do is we take this $544,000 first and we throw it away. It doesn't exist. It has become the 269. Okay, this 269,456 is all the family owes against the property. Now again, it's either Martha herself or her children or a survivor, a partner or a husband or a boyfriend. Someone could be at that property, and that someone could have the power to sign documentation and sell the property. Now, the 269,456, as I said, is all that's owed. Now, the family has had a good amount of time, 6 months to up to a year of notifications from the lender to refinance this 269. They haven't done it. Okay, so again, either the family is unable to do it or there's nobody to do it. Okay, either way, we can rate this property in terms of what we can do with it, and we can try and see what we can do with it. Now, so since they owe about 269, let's scroll down to the market value of about 322. Okay, so it's worth about 322 and they owe about 269. So here's what's going to happen. Either I can buy the property by making an offer and seeing if someone will sell it to me, or I can wait for this to go to auction where the lender is owed about 270 on a place that's worth about 320. Now, in experience, we have seen that a lot of times the lender will take that delinquent amount and they will discount it at the auction. Similarly, I can make a short sale offer if I evaluate the property and realize that it doesn't make sense to pay more than $200,000. Remember, the lender's trying to recoup whatever they can of this 269. That's all the lender wants. Remember, a foreclosure is a collection action. They just want to get paid. They don't want the house. They want the cash. And if they'll take less, then we've got a deal. So now I would approach the property, see what it's worth. You know, check it out. Okay, hold on a second. Wow, this doesn't look like the best house on the block. Definitely looks like this is not the best house on the block. So I got to tell you this: if you made a short sale offer on this one and to make it a fixer and then turn around and turn this into a rental property or a quick flip, I think you could get a low offer accepted on this property. I think it would make a lot of sense to go that route. Okay, or you wait for the auction and see how much they're willing to take at that auction, because this one, obviously, just looking at this property, this one needs a lot of work. This is a pigeonhole property, very small lot, very small house. Obviously, it is what it is. So we got to put a dollar figure on the table and see if we can make that happen again. Make an offer or be prepared to buy it at the auction. Okay, and the lender knows if this house needs a lot of work, the price at auction will be discounted. Okay, I'm going to close that one out because I saw another one. Right down the street, or not down the street, but right down the list from that one is this property on Loma Vista Drive in Long Beach. Now this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Now our system says this has a auction equity of negative $346,000. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up that profile. Now this one on Loma Vista, they owed $275. Again, throw out the loan, forget about that $544 figure. Air Wing and Antonia, they owe $275 on this place that's worth about $472. Okay, now again, you know, proof's in the pudding or the eye of the beholder, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Okay, so looks like we might have this property right here on the corner. Is this a multifamily? Okay, this is single family, so it's this house right here on the corner. So this has got some potential. Okay. Okay, so you got your house on the corner. Not the best house on the block, but probably not the worst either. And again, set a price point, determine what you're willing to pay. Know the lender is owed $275. Okay, know that that's what's going to satisfy the lender, is they got to get at least $275. Now, if you think it's worth the $472 that we're showing, go make an offer. Now let's see if they've got it listed with Zillow. No. Now Zillow says it's worth $586. Now let me leave you with that, because you know we gotta make sure you're clear on this one. Okay. The value of a property can vary greatly depending upon the comps that you use to compare it to. That's what comparables are. You're comparing. So Zillow says this place is worth $586,000. Okay, our system using other sales in the area calls it $472. That's about $100,000 difference. That's a big difference. Now, if you're on the wrong side of that and you go in thinking this is a $580,000 property and it turns out it's only a $470,000 property, you could really shoot yourself in the foot. So if you're ever uncertain, you know, get as many comps as you can and make sure you know what you're doing. If you're working with a realtor, work with that person. Let them teach you. If you want to bring them into it and say, you know what, let's do something together. Let's partner up, and you can, you know, let me, you know, you sell the property for me. I'll let you do the open houses so you can gather potential clients, and maybe you work out a deal where they do a cut rate on their commission on the sale in order to do a bunch of open houses and draw in some buyers. Okay, and maybe you use that as a way to develop a stronger network so that you can sell future properties and develop yourself a web of relationships in the business. And again, if I leave you with anything, research is key. Relationships, you know, will always give you an opportunity to sell the properties that you bought, and connect with others, because you should have a multi-prong approach. I'd be making offers to folks, but I would also be making sure that I'm giving myself an opportunity to bid at the auction with partners by taking cashier's checks and pooling them together so that I can get great deals. And AJ just had a question for me. What's the difference between County Records Research and Property Radar? Well, I'll tell you this, experience. Property Radar is a good company for what they do, but they can't teach you how to buy a property. What they're doing is they're reprinting on the internet the data, the same data that we get, but what they're not doing is they're not interfacing with their clients on a daily basis as much as we are, and they're not in a position to do the amount of corrections that we do to the data. Because what we do is we look at the properties every day, coaching clients on how to buy the properties and teaching clients on how to do the research themselves. And then because we've got the experience, we also process foreclosures here. That's something that that company does not do. We also have a bidding service, placing bids at the auction for our clients. That's something that company does not do. And we recheck the data on a regular basis because our focus is accuracy and our focus is teaching our clients how to get out there. As I said throughout this presentation, we're giving you the map to find the opportunities. We're giving you the loan information so you have an idea of which loan is foreclosing. But more important than that, we have an archive that goes back farther back than before that company even existed. And you've got personnel here Monday through Friday from 9 to 6 to help you go over that very same information and make sure you understand what it's telling you. Thank you so much. This has been Bob with County Records Research. Thank you again for joining us. Join us next week, Wednesday at 2:30 and Friday at 2:30, where we're going to be looking at more properties. Again, every Wednesday, we teach you on how to use the different features of the site, how to research properties, how to save searches, and how to make the website automatically put leads into your inbox. On Friday, we go shopping. So join us again next week, and we'll find some more deals. Have a great weekend, Rich.